Hi everyone, I'm Harv, Ian Harvey, founder of Collective Intelligence, and this is Stuff That Matters Now. Welcome back everybody. I am in downtown Wellington. I was just asking Wendy Alexander, who I'm with this morning. Good morning, Wendy.
Good morning.
I was asking, where are we? She said, well, you're in Wellington. I know I'm in Wellington. I thought there was Victoria Street. But anyway, Te Aro, this is where we are. Downtown, and we had a wee chat before, and we're looking out lovely windows here, and it's a cloudy day in Wellington today, which is it happens. Wendy, thank you for your time this morning. Wendy has got a scooter at the moment because you hurt your leg, and you've got one of those things you kneel in and scoot round on. It looks a lot of fun, Wendy.
I'm loving the scooter, actually. It's so much better than a wheelchair.
Right.
And every time I jump on it and I scoot around the office, I go, woohoo! I do not think anyone could get on that scooter without making that noise.
And I said to Wendy, you know what? Oh, I shouldn't say this, but, you know, it looks like worth breaking your leg for. Yeah.
Nearly.
Yeah, no, that's a bit of a stretch. Wendy, look, I'm really looking forward to this because I'm fascinated in your work. I'm interested in what your business Kin is doing and how it's disrupting this whole market, and we'll get into that. Before that, Wendy, who are you? Who is Wendy Alexander?
God, that's a wide question. I am a mother. I'm a partner. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. And I'm a worker. Yeah. And
the worker piece, that's really important to you, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I guess I kind of had an early career and was, giving life the beans in that space, and then came into motherhood a little bit later, and there were some challenges with that. And so I took a decent break out of the workforce, and then they were raising, the young ones. So I've got 4 sons. So coming back into the workforce with intent and freedom and energy and space, now I'm back to giving it the beans, and I'm having more fun now than I've ever had in my career.
And you call yourself, I love this term, a rampant introvert.
I do. Look, I'm a very open person. I have no secrets. I'm often found saying, look, I've got no secrets. Look in my handbag. I don't have secrets. But I'm not that comfortable talking about myself. So if you ever get into discourse with me, you'll notice that you're probably doing all the talking because I'm very good at asking questions. So I am a rampant introvert, and, it doesn't mean that I don't have a lot to say or that I don't have a big personality and that I'm not confident, because I am all of those things. But I also recharge by curling up on the sofa on my own with a book. There's no music, there's definitely no television, and if the cat wants to come sit with me, she better ask first.
And, it was, when I learnt this about you, I was surprised, because I really was, and you go to bed really early.
I do.
Yeah?
I do go to bed really early. Usually I'm curled up with my book by about 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And you rise early. And this podcast, I did this in the morning for you because I thought the morning's going to be better. But, yeah, it really surprised me how strong an introvert you are. But it's just the 2 of us today, so hopefully I'm not crowding you.
I'm okay.
You okay?
I have a big sleep tonight.
So, Wendy, thank you. And look, being open is really important. Tell me about your boys.
Well, I kind of alluded to, coming to parenthood later in life. I really didn't want kids until I was about 30, and then there was this ticking of the clock that sort of happened in the background. And getting pregnant for me was not an easy thing. It took a bit of time and it took a bit of science. And so my first pregnancy resulted in triplets. So, I was kind of like, I think I want to be a mum. And it took, nearly 3 years of quite a journey getting there. And then, there were these 3 delightful little bundles that came into the world all at once. So then there was a gap of about 7 years, and And then I had another son. So I've got a house full of Willies, and there's nothing about a male that you could tell me that would surprise me. But they are absolutely, like, my boys are everything to me. They are just such delightful, delightful young people.
A house full of Willies. Wendy, and so the second pregnancy, did science help with that?
Science did help with that. I was actually pregnant with twins, but we lost one along the way. So I don't think about that often, but when I think about my youngest, somewhere out there, he's got a bro.
Right.
Yeah. And
Wendy, the science is wonderful, but pretty intrusive.
It is a ride. So, I think at the time that I fell pregnant with the three boys, I think some of the practices were a little bit enthusiastic. So there was a set of quads in Wellington that had been born just before, and there were 4 of us pregnant in Wellington with triplets. And, you'll understand the health system being the way it is. There really wasn't room in neonate for all of these babies. So, you're in a high-risk pregnancy situation. You're being monitored so closely to try and bring about, viable birth and protect these beautiful young things that are growing in you. But knowing that actually at the last minute you may be flown to Auckland, which was a very real possibility, and at one point all the beds in New Zealand were full, and I was going to be on a plane to Sydney. So we were getting down to the wire. Yeah, so you think about going through, first time giving birth, high multiples, there's complications with that, and then thinking you might be popped on a flight away from all of your support network and giving birth in a completely different country. So things didn't play out that way. We did give birth in Wellington, which was fantastic, but quite a journey. On the big day, there were 19 people in the delivery room. So pretty much a squad of 3 per child, and then a few others with just room for my husband at the end of the bed.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, as an introvert, how did that feel?
To be honest, I spent most of my pregnancy praying for a good outcome because it was always going to be high risk. I'm not a particularly large build, and I had some other complications as well. So I was always just on the daily doing deals with God, and I'm not a particularly religious person. But I was counting down the days and the weeks to viability every single day. So when the big day arrived, we were at a point where it looked pretty solid. It looked pretty okay. So I was very focused on going through the procedure, and I didn't know the gender of the babies. I didn't really want to kind of go there. So it was a surprise, every child they pulled out. I was like, it's a boy. I'm like, whoa, and then there was, it's a boy. I was like, oh my gosh, another boy. And there was like, it's a boy. I'm like, is there anyone else in there? Is there another one?
And so then you've got to get 3. You've got to get 3 boys. Did you have the names beforehand?
Well, yes, we did. But what we didn't have a chance to do was, so they just labelled them baby 1, baby 2 and baby 3. And then, we were in the delivery suite just tidying up and moving through to recovery. And a nurse came running in and said, what are their names? And so we just reeled off, Tom, Jack and Finn. So we didn't actually get to look at the child and go, you look like Tom. It was pretty much they just slapped the names on the incubators and off they went to neonate. So, yes, we had the names picked out, but did we actually name each individual child? No.
And you didn't think of changing or anything? It just went, this is what's...
Honestly, there wasn't a lot of clarity of thought. It was just survival mode. There were complications after the birth, and I will not bore you with them, but it was a bit hairy for a bit for me. And so just getting through that and into recovery. And then, the guys had 7 weeks in neonate. They were little. They were, like 1.2 kilos. So we were always in for a long ride there.
Yep.
So I was just focusing on, how can I support these little guys? How am I going to bond with them? Is breastfeeding a possibility? I don't know. They were tiny little things.
And I've had the pleasure of meeting one of your sons, Finn, who is... I met him at your host day that I facilitated, and he walked in, and I became fixated on him because he's just so... He's 24? Is he 24? And the whole team were just like, what is this? Because he's so smart and insightful. So he's 24, but he's got this wisdom of a 70-year-old, It's quite extraordinary. Yeah. Anyway, it's not about Finn. Anyway, what are the 3 boys, are the triplets? different? Are they... No, different question. How different are they from each other?
They're very different, and some of that I think is nature, and some I think by their own design. Because you'll appreciate if you're in utero together, you're fighting for jostling for space. Who's going to be born first? There's, even then there was kind of competition, and then it's who's going to sit next to mum on the sofa tonight. Who's going to sit in the front seat? That constantly competing for, I guess, your position in the world. And we might have a visitor, and they come in and they go, "And how are the boys today?" Instead of going, "And how are you, Finn? And how are you, Jack? And how are you doing, Tom?" Because, which three people are going to be feeling identical on any given day?
Yeah.
So they're very different, from, physically, Tom is very tall and very lean. Jack is shorter and he's a little bit more lush. And then Finn is slightly shorter again and he's more muscly in build. So they're different physically, but in personalities they're also very, very different. They're absolutely their own men.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being involved in a set of triplets some years ago, and it was they were 4 when I met them, 3 girls, and it was fascinating. It was fascinating watching it, and they were all different, and that jostling thing was going on all the time. And I always wondered, what impact that has on them later on, whether what they're like with people and so forth. But it's totally different. Yeah. So Wendy, coming back on track, this work ethic you've got, this love of work, where did that come from? Do you think is that something is that in your whakapapa? Is it in your where does it come from?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I have a clear answer. I think I really like to feel like I'm contributing in the world. So thinking back to when I first started working, I was probably in intermediate, so maybe 11, 12. And on the bike ride to school was a racing horse stables. And, we used to stop and stand on our bike seats and pat the horses and feed them grass. And I ended up working there. So I used to cycle a couple of Ks up to, that was kind of like a quasi-farm, and just do horse grooming and cleaning out stables before school, and then I'd do school, and then I'd go back on the way home and work after. So I used to do that 5 days a week for the princely sum of $5 a week, but loved it. And so really it never occurred to me not to kind of work after that. There's a wonderful independence that comes with earning money and the choices that it gives you and the freedoms that it brings.
Because you're not a workaholic. I don't think you're a workaholic. You seem to have a very healthy boundaries around work and so forth. But I've noticed when you're at work or with your work, you're very focused and intense and deliberate with your work. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Absolute laser focus while at work. But I won't compromise family or that connection time. And part of the reason I get up so early, which listeners is 4 o'clock in the morning, is so that I can fit everything in. I like to do my mindfulness in the morning. I like to have a workout. I like to think about what are we going to eat tonight when we finally sit down together as a family and kind of plan that. I like to, catch up with the news and do that on my own in quiet time. It's just, honestly, it's like a religious experience to me. That is my time of day. But then when I hit the office by sort of 7 or 7:30, that's it. But honestly, 4:30, I'm out the door and I'm back and I'm tuning in with the family and connecting at that level.
So what's it like to be living with you as a life partner?
You'd have to ask Chris.
I'm asking you.
I know. I hold myself to a very high standard. And that's just intrinsic in me, and I suspect that's bloody annoying for people that live with me. Possibly they don't feel like they measure up all the time. I'd like to think I'm fun. We do have a good laugh. Like in my home, the kitchen is the heart of the family.
Yep.
So we spend like a ton of time in there. All
Yep.
my boys like to get in there and cook and help and pitch in, and it's just a lovely bonding time. It's difficult with young men to sit down and talk about your feelings when it's eyeball to eyeball, but our best conversations happen in the kitchen or in the car when they don't need to look at you necessarily, but they're quite happy to share what's going on and chew the fat and swap news and share stories.
Are you a good mother?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I try my damnedest. Yeah.
And what makes a good mother?
Well, acceptance for who they are and what they bring, and non-judgment, and then just quiet support. I think each of my 4 boys know that if the chips were down, I would be in their corner. And there really are no barriers to that. If they ended up in an absolute pickle, and let's be honest, with young boys, men, there are, I'll be there. I'll be there in the trenches with them.
Nice. Looking at your face, I go, I think you would be there with them. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
If you come near me or mine, I will take you down.
Right. So this is the violent podcast.
Fiercely protective
I get that.
of my whole family. But, you know, my mum and my dad as well, like everyone, my siblings, I'm just like that. If you come near me and mine and I feel like you're going to have a crack, I will take you down.
Right, okay, I've noted that. I'll note that away in the back. Right. So then, if we look at, so direct question, do you bring that same fierceness to kin?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. If anybody is mean to my team, or we've got clients who are being unreasonable or unkind, we're not working with them. It's not happening.
Nice to know. I mean, it's interesting you putting those boundaries out, because we're going to dig into what kin actually does soon, which will give it some context. So let's do that now, so that we actually get that down, what kin is and what it does, and then I think that will give it context, your comment you've just made. So before we go into what kin does, what was the spark in you that went, this is the thing I want to bring to life?
So kin is in the space of recruitment, and I've been in that industry my whole career, which is it's a long time to be in that space. It's a tough industry. Everything that you're dealing with is to do with human beings, and human beings are different, unpredictable. There are no 2 days that are the same, and some days are really tough, and some days are amazing. And sometimes you get those 2 things on the same day, in the same hour. So you need to be resilient, and you need to be empathetic. You need to be an empath. You need to understand, business needs, and then the drivers of an individual as an employee and what they're looking for to fulfil themselves. It's such a privilege to work in this space.
Just hold up there. You use the word empathetic and empath. Are they different?
So to me, an empath is somebody who can read between the lines and pick up the vibe of the in-between, what's not being said, can read a room or an audience or a face or a person very well. So it's not just what is coming out of this person's mouth, but what are they actually really saying, what else is there, what's not being said. That to me is the empath, can pick up that and relate to. And then the empathetic is more putting yourself in that person's shoes and understanding where they're coming from. So without the sympathy, but actually going, yeah, I can see that this is tough for you. And I guess for us, particularly during COVID times, we'd get candidates who were clearly feeling vulnerable, but it manifested itself as anger. And so rather than reacting to the anger and an attack that might come, understanding that actually they're behaving like that because they're feeling vulnerable, rightly so. They've just lost their job, they've got financial commitments, and kind of rolling with it from that perspective, as opposed to feeling defensive and attacked and responding like that.
Yeah, the actions are, this is the second conversation I've had with this today. And in these times, we are seeing behaviours coming out that's fueled from all sorts of stuff. And I had a meeting with our team about 3 weeks ago online, and it was a Friday morning, and I haven't done it for a long time. I became a dictator in the conversation, and it was because I was frustrated with something, and I just wanted some control. And I used the dictator to get control. And it felt really good. I apologised 20 minutes later. And I thought, I could not get over how good it felt to go stamp. I'm going to, I was totally wrong. But it was amazing, the need for me to just get some surety in this moment, and I used, this very, very blunt tool to do that. And the team were great, very gracious, because nobody reacted when I was being the dictator. It was fascinating. Nobody just pushed back. They just let me go, which was the best thing, because if they'd pushed back, I would have just ramped up the dictatorship, right? And great skills from the team of just going, let them go, And I wasn't embarrassed. I was just disappointed that I'd gone there, just going, really, you have to do that, and then going, so what was it? Was frustration, and then unpacking that. But it takes a bit of work to actually work out sometimes what's going on, eh?
Absolutely, it absolutely does.
Yeah. So recruitment is recruiting people for professional roles. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so you've done this forever.
Yeah.
And what was the attraction into this space?
Into recruitment or into kin?
Into recruitment initially.
Well, I have only ever met one person who said, I want a career in recruitment. Most of us fall into it. It just kind of happens. So often you're kind of, or back in the olden days when I first started, you'd walk into an agency and say, I'm looking for a job, can you find me one? And they'd get chatting to you and interview you, and they'd often end up going, you look a bit of a right, why don't you come in here and work, in recruitment?
Right, okay.
And it was pretty much as simple as that.
And so, kin today, what's its point of difference from the traditional recruitment business?
Yeah, well, having done kind of 25 years in either a traditional recruitment agency or an internal recruitment role where I was part of a large organisation recruiting people indirectly, their model is, the agency model is pay on placement, so you pay a percentage of a salary on placement of a candidate. And it's generally 15%, can go up to 18 or 20, or if it's executive search, 30, 35% of salary. So if we take round numbers, say it's a $100,000 salary, if we take that 15%, it's a $15,000 invoice on placement of a candidate. So that's a lot of money, massive burden to small business, particularly decimates the not-for-profit sector. And along the way the commission model works with that industry, of that $15,000, up to a third of it could end up in a recruitment consultant's back pocket for placing that candidate. So we know reward drives behaviour, monetary reward especially so. So that industry has a reputation for often a lack of transparency, sometimes jamming square pegs into round holes, and it's all in pursuit of the holy dollar. And they can earn terrific money.
And if they don't place somebody, they don't get paid.
They don't, and it's interesting. A lot of people don't appreciate that. In that space, often 90% of the work that somebody does is for free, because you're right. If they don't make a placement, they don't get the fee. So I think that's part of the reason why the fee structure is so high. So I kind of fell out of love with that model and started, exploring ways of doing things differently. And I struck up a conversation with Samantha Gadd, who was my business partner at the time, and thinking, how can we do this differently? There's got to be a better way, not just around the financial model and the costs involved, but also the experience, because, you often hear working with traditional recruiters can feel a little bit transactional and sometimes grubby. So, we kind of sat down together and we flirted with the idea for a while before we actually committed. Probably we had a conversation for about 6 months before we committed to actually doing something about it, and eventually took a leap of faith, and I just took a fixed-term contract in her business and sat in a desk in a corner trying to work out what could this feel like, what could it look like, how would it stack up. So there were many different iterations along the way. It took about 8 months to really figure out what the value proposition would be. And at that point, we kind of launched this new baby called Kin, which had been incubated within humankind. And it became a separate legal entity and a thing with a life of its own. And it's just really, taken off like a rocket since then.
And why? So, when people come to you, what experience do they have now?
Yeah, the experience is probably the biggest part for me, and then the financial side is secondary, but for new clients, that's the biggest draw card. So humanity is massive for us. It's about seeing the human being. I see who you are. I understand what you're looking for. I understand what your drivers are. I understand the environment that you're looking for, where you'll thrive and be all that you can be as a human being, because that's what we all want, isn't it? And then on the client side, it's actually understanding, what is keeping you awake at night. I know it sounds cliched, but, what do you worry about? What are your business drivers? What are the demands from your board? Have you got investors? What are their expectations? And who is likely to fit in with your organisation, join your mission and help you, reach all of those goals? And then it's marrying the two together. So, finding the person with the aspirations that match the value set of that organisation, bringing the two together, and off they go. It's such a good feeling when that comes together. It's just like a symphony. You just can feel it in your bones. It's like, this is a winner.
Thrive and symphony, these would not be words in the old recruitment industry, would they?
No, they wouldn't. No, it is quite different, but I think with our business, so we've kind of gone from me in a desk in a corner to a team of 12 now between Auckland and Wellington. And the people that are drawn to Kin to work, they're not driven by the holy dollar. So we don't have a commission model here. We just threw that out the door. So our people are well rewarded, recognised, valued, and given all the tools they need to grow to be all that they can be. And then around attracting business, rather than pay on placement percentage of salary, we've come to market with a really transparent hourly rate, time and materials model. So, you jump on the Kin website, basically the kimono's absolutely open. Here's our hourly rate. Here's some examples of what roles we've filled. This is what it's likely going to cost you. And by the way, along the way, you'll have a very human experience. So, rule of thumb, typically we're delivering a better experience at about half the cost of the traditional recruitment agency, and my team are happy, engaged, doing good work, amazing clients, and they're well rewarded for it.
So who pays you? Is it the company looking, or is it the person looking for a job?
It's the company looking.
Right.
It's an interesting proposition, candidates paying. I think there's a little bit of that offshore, but certainly not in New Zealand. It's not really a thing.
Right. And so when you are placing somebody, you are doing what's best for the company.
Yeah.
And if the model's working, you're also doing what's best for the person seeking the job.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got to get that in balance, eh?
Yeah. That's the knack. That's the magic.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Because I know one of our members recently, it's a family business that's gone really well for a long period of time. They employed their first general manager through a traditional recruitment agency, cost them a lot of money. It's a big chunk of money. And they got a placement that they had to remove within 12 months for another big chunk of money.
Ouch.
And what amazed me was that I looked at the placement, it just didn't make sense. It just did not make sense. And the frustration is that this company has now lost a bit of confidence because, they were on this trajectory, and this thing is, the real costs are not about the in and out, but it's this effect it's had on the loss of confidence in the rest of the business. But I just marvelled at this placement going, doesn't make sense at all. The values and so forth just didn't align. Yeah, I couldn't believe how that was so misaligned. And is that a product, do you think, of that old model of the commission basis?
Potentially, without understanding the ins and outs of that particular scenario. in the old model, a recruitment consultant is a salesperson. They're selling. It's what they're doing. They're selling a body, so to speak. So they want the commission, so they will be encouraging the employer to hire. So it could have been that. But, also, to be fair, human beings are unpredictable. And, you can interview people who do an incredible job of giving an impression. But actually the talent is in going through that rest of that whole process and really unpicking, what are you like really, and what are your default behaviours, and how do they change under stress, and what are the, at your worst, what do you look like, and understanding all that, are you still going to be the person that they'll want in this business? But even if you do all your checks, you don't get it right 100% of the time, because we're dealing with human beings. And in this environment right now, honestly, some of the behaviour out there is just... we've got instances where senior candidates might sign a contract and then they'll pull out. So they've actually signed a legally binding contract. Everything looks great. It's all a symphony. But we're in COVID times and the employment market out there is nuts at the moment. And possibly they've had another conversation, the other proposition looks better, and they've just kind of parked their values and gone, you know what? I know I said I'd do this, but actually I'm going to do that.
This is amazing. This has happened yesterday to an organisation, and they have been in contract with this person for 12 months, and the contract was, I'm not sure it was signed, but anyway, this person's gone. And I found out from one of the directors last night, and I was just like, what? What? Yeah.
It's painful. It's a very complex market. Even, having been around, post GFC, and that was hard enough, this is different again. I think in 12 months, 24 months, we will look back and we'll go, man, that was tough. It is tough out there. It's like being in the trenches on the daily. It is tough.
What's interesting, I'm just reflecting on this position. This person went to this other organisation for money. I was just reflecting on that because I just could not get over... they have had, the process has taken, it was a contract moving into a full-time, and so they knew each other, and it's a good job, it's a nationally based job, great salary, the whole bit. Yeah, the last minute. What do you reckon this time's going to be called, Wendy? What do you reckon this era is going to be called? And what are we learning at the moment?
That's a massive question. I think it'll be the C word. I think somewhere there'll be COVID,
Yeah.
There'll be the COVID times, the COVID years.
And what are we learning about humanity right now? And I know that's a big question, but give it a stab.
I think everyone's going through their own stuff, and when I talk to other business leaders out there, when you get down to it at a human level and you go, how are you? How are you really? It's the really conversations. No one's okay. None of us. So that's, everyone who's in commercial enterprise, and it's everyone who's an employee. So I think the learning is, if we take the be kind to the next level. I think we've all got a bit of kindness fatigue at the moment, and particularly with the second lockdown. But it's really just holding on to that because, somebody might behave like an arse through the day, but you really don't know what's going on for them behind closed doors when they go home at night. You really don't.
Thank you. That's we could just end the podcast here. We're not going to.
I'll drop the mic.
No, it's just that's what I am just reflecting on that. So I've had 2 conversations in the last week, and it was the follow-up question, what's really going on. I've just had a conversation this morning. I've connected with a woman this morning who I've always admired and so forth, but we connected this morning over a cup of coffee more deeply than we ever have. And this woman has seriously got her shit together, right? And it was wonderful and of course nobody's got their shit together, and she shared with me, what's been going on this year, and it was awesome. And I felt so much better being able to just listen to her. Yeah. And so turning that into advice, Wendy, would be to ask that second question, how are you really, is so profoundly, important right now.
And leave the space, for that response.
Yeah.
And then, when I think about all of the stuff that's happened, even for me personally in the last 12 months, it's been a ride, and right down to breaking the leg, and that wasn't particularly a fun time. But it's that practicing gratefulness is so, so powerful. You just need to focus on what you have, what's good, what's going well, because there's stacks of it. There are stacks of it. But unfortunately, human beings are wired to do the opposite. So that gratefulness is a practice that we do every day in the business. It's honestly, it's how we open every stand-up at 9:30 is, how are you really? And you're free to respond in any way you want. And what's one thing you're grateful for today?
Right.
And it just sets the mood. It encourages us to stay real, but also to focus on the good, because there's so much of it out there.
Yeah. Yesterday I don't know why, I think it was, this first week of daylight saving is, I always struggle with the change, and I try and prepare myself every year and beforehand get up early and all that, but it's just... And yesterday I was just not feeling great, and I'm frustrated with some stuff going on with the process we're going through, and it's just going. I'd written a board report the day before, and I looked at the timelines and going, we're behind, and I'm frustrated with that. So I scheduled a talk with one of our fabulous directors, Andrea Delameda, who is in Melbourne. She's a stunning woman. And we connected, had this conversation for 3 o'clock yesterday. And she was making lunch, and while she was making lunch, and she's got it on phone, it was on WhatsApp and whatever. And Andrea is somebody that, I really connect with. But we were having a transactional conversation, and it was pissing me off. And I thought, I don't want a transactional conversation. And so we'd finished the transactional conversation about this process. And I thought, how do I connect? And I said, so I asked the question, I said, are we good, Andrea? And everything changed. Everything changed. And she picked up the phone, brought it closer to her face, and we had a conversation, right? And I still feel good from that now, right? It just filled me up. And that's what I needed, And I'm going, fuck the transactional thing, right? I want to know, connect with you.
So she was making lunch and clearly distracted by that.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you called me last week and I said to you, you're calling me from your phone, aren't you, Ian?
Yes. Well, I was driving.
Yes. Oh, while you were driving. And so I said, Aucklanders do that. They've got such a commute. And I said, and they've got all the time in the world, so they've got a 40-minute drive, and they'll pick up the phone and I'm like, and I feel used. They're not present. They're distracted. They're driving, and they're filling in their drive time, having a conversation with me that they're only half tuned in on. Honestly, it really gets my goat. It's about being present in the moment. If you're going to reach out to me, let's connect. Otherwise, let's not.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I have a 30-minute commute to work every day, and I'm on the phone the whole way.
I felt like a B-grade citizen. I thought, I'm not important enough that Harv will phone me when he's sitting at his desk and he's giving me his 100% attention. I'm important enough that he's phoning me while he's driving and I'm getting 50% of his attention. That's how that landed. Yep, absolutely.
You've got it now.
I do.
You've got it now. This is not really a podcast. This is just a lesson for Harv. Yeah, okay.
Are you okay?
None of your business. No, I'm reflecting on that, right? So I'm reflecting on... And cell phone reception in the rural area is really patchy, so it goes in and out. And so I have those conversations all the time. Yeah, because it's convenient.
For you.
For me. Thank you. We don't have to put this podcast up. Actually, it's a dog. We're not doing it.
You are such a delight.
And you know what? I felt that last week. You went your drive and you talked about, okay, what's with Wendy? What?
I told you off. I know.
Yeah. Actually, it wasn't a bad telling off, though. I've had worse. Okay, so coming back to so my head's going all over the place there. Oh, stop playing with me. Be nice. Okay, where were we? Talking to the team. And we don't edit. And I'm not switching this off, Wendy, all right? We're going to carry on, all right? This is my podcast. This is not your podcast.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, Ian.
I'm the boss man. Okay, going back to...
You folded your arms as well. Look at you there.
I'm sulking.
Look at you there.
I'm sulking. I'm sulking. Stop it. Wendy, going back to your check-in with the team and the appreciation, tell me about, this recruitment business. What do you like with your staff? Right? What do you like with operating your team?
Recruitment is a tough gig. It is tough. And it takes a lot of heart, a lot of courage. You end up having a lot of hard conversations, and you learn things about people that it's really a privilege to know. So there's a vulnerability in being a business owner, there's a vulnerability in being a candidate. So it's kind of acknowledging that. So the people that are drawn to work with can have massive hearts, a lot of courage, and a huge amount of resilience. Underneath all that, they're also highly sensitive because you need those traits of empathy and you need to be kind of an empath to do this well. So I guess I have a fierce protection for everyone in my team, and if there's any unkindness that goes on or any kind of bullying or kind of master-slave flavours that start to creep in, conversations are had around that, and it could be that actually we just agree that the partnership with that particular client isn't quite right, and I'm quite happy to refer them to other businesses that might be able to support them, but actually they're not quite right for us and our team. So yeah, I have that protectiveness with my team, which is all about I want them to do work that they enjoy, and I'm not saying every day is fun because it's definitely not, but to have enjoyable, meaningful work, helping to grow Kiwi businesses to be all that they can be through powering them with amazing human beings, and then working with amazing human beings, employees, candidates, and helping them find jobs that can grow them as an individual and give them a sense of validity and belonging and purpose. And just reward people well and check in at a very human level around how are you doing. So a lot of our crew don't work full-time. They've got other commitments. Often it's young families and other demands on their time. So it's just being really respectful of the boundaries around that. We've got school holidays coming next week. Half my team will disappear, and they should, and be with their loved ones and hang out in that way. So it's just having a business that can breathe in and breathe out without suffering any adverse impact, where others can step in and fill the gap that's left by those who want and need to be with their families. So that's huge for us, just having that genuine flexibility. And then I feel really strongly that I don't want anyone to burn out on my watch, ever. So we don't have sales targets, we don't have commission, but I do keep an eye on utilisation. So if I've got a team member that says, I think I can manage about 20 hours work a week, when I'm tracking utilisation, if their hours are creeping up to 25 or 30 a week, we're having a conversation about that because something's giving around the edges at home. I know it is. So let's talk about that and let's try and get that down to a more manageable level. So it's just about, I want people in our business to be here, not just for a good time, but genuinely for a long time. And to be able to have a rich and rewarding career where they continue to grow and learn as a person, but they're not knackered at the end of every day and they can't go, oh my God, thank God it's Friday. It's the end of the week, I'm looking forward to the weekend, but you know what? I still feel okay. And even in November after a big year, I still feel okay. So it's just that. I don't think you have to break yourself to have a great career and enjoyable work.
And Wendy, I'm asking purely for me now.
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Nah, not even going to pretend. What do you do with the staff, your crew, because I don't even like the word staff. There you go.
I don't. That's old school.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting how much stuff we're trying to check out at the moment. We're just recertifying as a B Corp at the moment, and they ask for our job descriptions. Right? I mean, we don't have job descriptions. Right? We have diagrams of workflows and circles about who's doing stuff, and we put that in. And I thought I was really disappointed that B Corp asked for our job descriptions. I thought, get with the program, guys. That is just, KPIs and shit like that. Nobody's been motivated by that. Well, no, some people have, but not humans aren't motivated by KPIs. And so we put these diagrams in as our job descriptions and thought, get up to date.
It's so interesting. We're heading down the B Corp route at the moment, and I'm feeling the same way. We're not a complicated business. And I like to travel light on policy, and working through the B Corp process, there's all of these policies, and I'm really digging my toes in around it.
Yeah,
I don't want to have a code of ethics.
Yeah.
We understand all this stuff intrinsically. Why do I have to have 3 pages about all of it? I don't want to do it.
Yeah. So I think this is a bigger conversation, and I was alluded to this yesterday by Andrea. We had this conversation around B Corp because she was the CEO of B Lab in Australia that administered us. And I said, there's some shit in here that I'm just going, it's out of date. She went, yep, we need to follow the South American B Corp model, South America have disrupted the B Corp thing and made it their own. And I am really keen for New Zealand to detach from Australia and have our own standards and integrate our practices, because I believe Australia and New Zealand as a culture is separating very, very quickly. And I want to bring in more Indigenous practices within the business and make it more about Aotearoa than about being a sub-branch of Australia.
Love that. Good thinking.
And just going, you know what, this is out of date. This is out of date. And so, yeah, we just push back. And because we were motivated by being good people and following the thing and going, nah, this is shit. This is way out of whack. Yeah. And now I can't remember my question.
Well, I wasn't listening, so I can't either.
The good thing is nobody listens to this shit anyway. Hey, Wendy, actually that's not true.
My mum will listen to it.
God, we're going to have one listener. What's your mum's name?
Dearly.
Sorry?
Dearly.
Dearly?
Yeah.
Dearly?
It's a lovely name, isn't it?
Where's that from?
England. Her mum was English.
Where, Dearly?
Yeah.
Okay, shout out to Dearly. Dearly, thank you for listening to this. We'll have one person, we'll know where she lives. We'll go, there we go. One person's listened to it. The question I was going to ask was, do you do other stuff with your crew here? Do you take them out? What do you do as a team? Or is it all done in here in the office?
It's pretty integrated, to be honest. We have a lot of fun, like every day is a party in a small way. So, we've got the Spotify going and we take turns at DJing that, and there's a lot of pressure around that, but a lot of giggles around the edges as well. As an introvert, I'm less inclined to go out and get on it, so to speak. I'm not a pub and club sort of a person. Well,
you'd be asleep for a start.
True. But we might pop out for a lunch. But the connection is really that celebration and doing things differently is just woven into kind of every day. We're not a business that measures, the input. We work flexibly. It's not about being in the office. You can be at home. You can be at a cafe. You can be at the beach. It doesn't matter. It's actually about the output and making sure that everyone's having a good experience with us, whether they're a job seeker or a client.
Yeah.
We don't do anything specific. Probably 4 times a year we come together as a whole team, so everybody will come in from remote.
Yep.
And we just focus on learning, and it could be, we've got one coming up in November where we're having someone in who is an incredibly talented writer, and she is all about writing with clarity. Throw out all the jargon, throw out all the corporate speak, just get rid of all that. What do you really want to say? And say it in a conversational tone that connects with me. Like, that's huge for us. So we're doing a half-day, workshop with Christine, which we're looking forward to. But, we've also done other things around, how to engage authentically with the Māori and Pacifica community, for example, which is quite different. So things like that. So we'll come together as a team and we'll do some learning and growing, and then we'll spend half a day having fun and just, getting out there and, what do I call? I kind of refer to our team as a seething mass of happiness, because honestly, when everybody gets together, we're just so thrilled to see one another and kind of just hang out in a different setting that's not about work. It's just lovely to be around one another's energy.
Yeah. I have a need to play. It's something that's really important for me. Mm-hmm. Not sure why that is. Haven't worked that out yet, but it's something that's really important, and it's something that's really important to me with people I like to play. All right?
What does play mean?
For me, it's enjoying each other's company, having fun. So it's about shooting the breeze. It's about being a bit naughty. It's about pushing the edges. It's about let's have a laugh. I mean, we've done it here on this podcast right now, right? So to me, this is play. This is not work. This is sitting down with Wendy and having fun. So I really enjoy the podcast because I want to connect with people. But playing is really important for enjoying. I think it's just around enjoying life. And I enjoy work, right? I like working. And I like playing. And I like having that balance between the two. And so in the office and the collective intelligence teams, I think people learn when they're playing. And I've got no science to back that up. But I think it's really important that I don't like boring people. Right? It's pretty judgy, but yeah, I think there was just some energy around playing. And then, it's interesting at the office that, I love having a joke. I don't like offending people. Sometimes I step over the line and I offend people, and I hate that. I never like offending people. Okay.
I'm pretty sure you do it on the daily, though, really. Come on, let's be honest.
Yes, but it's easy to apologise.
I bet you do a good apology because you get so much practice.
I do. I apologised to a woman this week. I upset her and I was really pissed at myself about that. But so the play thing I think is really important, of playing at work, because I also think it's productive. I think it releases endorphins and stuff, and yeah.
Do you not think that you can do the both? Like, isn't that really what...
It's getting a balance.
Yeah.
It's getting a balance.
So you can still have the hard conversations and do the important and serious things, but actually be playful around the edges.
Yeah. These hard conversations, you've brought that up a number of times. What are the skills need to be developed to have those conversations?
Lord, well, I don't know. I've never done any formal training. I think you just need to come from a place of compassion and being curious, but also being really clear around it. And, in our space, you've got a candidate who might be, every candidate is vulnerable because at some point when they apply for a job, they picture them being in that job. But, if you've got 50 people applying, only one can get it. So you're going to have 49 disappointed people. But, you kind of get through to a stage, say, to background and reference checks. And so you're phoning somebody that, and you're asking all the questions. So you're pretty much taking all of the information that you've learned about this human up to this point, and you're really wanting to validate it through asking deep questions. They're very vulnerable in that situation. Yep. And maybe you'll uncover something that you haven't uncovered during your interviews and things. And so you need to deal with that. And maybe it's potentially a deal breaker on them getting on the job. Yep. And so you may need to go back to that candidate and say, can we talk about, can we explore this? So I think it's really coming from I see you as a human. I've learned this. let's talk about that. I'd love to understand the context, and I'd love to understand how things work from your perspective. And sometimes you can wrap that all together and present it to the client, and it's absolutely okay. It's fine. It's okay. And sometimes it's not. But it's actually having the heart and the courage and then the compassion and the humanity that you wrap around those conversations that brings about an outcome where hopefully nobody's bleeding and got terribly hurt feelings, but it needs to be done.
I had a conversation yesterday with a school principal, and I'm just thinking that this on the podcast, and I asked her at the end, what are the important things now to teach kids? And she said it's quite simple, that just for them to be able to connect with their heart, and everything else will follow. It was the most profound moment. We both ended up crying at the end of the podcast as a result, and I thought, this is a school principal, talking about that's what we need to teach kids to do that. And sometimes that can be quite difficult to be able to do that. Takes a lot of courage to be able to do that.
Well, it does, but I think also being present. I worry about our young ones in this digital age with social media and the like, and gaming even, around what's real and what isn't. And yeah, it's a tough time for our young ones. Our youngest, and I'm so proud of him for this, he doesn't have Facebook. He's not on social at all. He's got Messenger and that's it. He's 17. And, I know all of his peers aren't the same. But actually, I think it serves him really well around mental health and well-being.
Yep.
It's just such a lot of noise in that space.
Yep. Look, I think it's going to be interesting to see if social media survives, because it is in that, when I say survives, in that it is just it is the new form of cancer right now. It is phenomenally irresponsible and harmful. And I have got to Mokopuna now, and I hope social media disappears, banned, whatever, before they're teenagers, because I just think of the stuff that they can, without filters, can land in their little Facebook or whatever it is. So it's going to be interesting to see that develop. Wendy, I've got a theory. I've got an idea that I'm interested in writing about soon. And that is that as people go through their careers and they develop into more senior roles, they get paid more. Okay? They get paid more because there's responsibility and this. Right? And I thought, what would happen if we turned that model around and said, as you go through and you go up the ranks, you get paid less? And so you hit your maximum pay grade and maybe your late 20s and 30s, and then as you get into the 40s, your pay grade goes down as you go up the chain. And it's something I'm just, playing with, because there are still a lot of senior leaders out there that have got there because they're aggressive and they push hard and they work hard and they get themselves into these positions and they get paid more and their status goes up, and a whole lot of people around them suffer as a result of that. And I'm just really interested in trying to disrupt this model we've got now, which I believe on the whole, not always, but there's a lot of it doesn't work.
So the silence is the question, huh? From a practical perspective, I mean, if you think about getting to your late 20s, early mid-30s, you're possibly having a family, you've possibly got a mortgage to service, you're possibly down from 2 incomes to 1, and then you're getting a declining. I just can't see how that would translate as a society from a practical perspective. I hear what you're saying around the obscene amounts of money that some executives earn. I suspect you've got a slightly jaundiced view, maybe, of behaviour of executives.
Maybe I do.
Yeah, I most senior leaders that I've known in my life and that we work with now are thoroughly decent human beings, good leaders, values driven, and want the best. But we probably don't work with many, or don't come across that many, who are, earning upwards of $500,000. So possibly that's it. I don't know. I do wonder what, because as human beings, we have needs, and if your needs are met and you've got a little bit more and you can have a little bit more and do a little bit more, that's lovely. But it must reach a point where, what are you going to do with all this dirty money? Like, what are you really going to do with that? And, for me, and I don't know if my team would agree with this, but, we have a giving program, so we take some of our profit and we support a global platform called B1G1, which is, a business for good platform giving to charities, and it's linked to business milestones. So simple things like, whenever somebody in the team has a birthday, we give 100 days of life-saving water to families in Cambodia. So there's sort of, business milestones linked to charities, and we've got a local charity we support as well, the Big Buddy Mentoring Trust. And it's just a small percentage of our profit. But, in time, it'd be kind of nice to go, look, we're meeting all our outgoings, everybody's well paid and well rewarded. Let's take all of that profit and give it back, because actually we don't need it. And there are others that absolutely do. So, I just wonder if there's something there. What's that lovely cause? Spend My Super. I'd be right on board with that. If I was that point in my life where I didn't need government super, I would absolutely be jumping on that and giving it to those who do.
Yeah, it's that sort of stuff. It's just, we need to find mechanisms to create more equity and break down barriers and all that stuff. It's something that's just quietly percolating, and thank you for the pushback on that, because, this is just something that's just rumbling away in my head at the moment, going, and yeah, I'm not sure. No, I wouldn't say I've got a jaundiced view. I think I've just had an unthought out view. I've just said, I do this in my head. And sometimes, I often think when I have an idea, it's a good idea, until I find out it's not a good idea. I go, I thought it was a good idea. In my head, it was a good idea. So thanks for the pushback on that. But I'm really intrigued as to how we break up some of these social norms that are not serving us, that make society worse, and they're progressive things, but actually it's getting the opposite. It's the unintended consequences.
100% agree. 100%.
That happen. Well, that's good. That's good. I'm just like, we've got brilliant. You've agreed with me. 100%. Tick. Put that down. Yeah, look, it's there are things out there at the moment I don't like. What. So, for instance, there is this young woman who's just won the American Tennis Open, and wonderful young woman from the UK, and they're talking about how much money she will earn now from sponsorships and so forth, and that's tens and tens of millions of dollars. And it's not good. I don't think any of that is a healthy thing. And I worry about that young woman now, because I think she's a woman of colour representing the UK. It's all going famously. What happens when it doesn't? Right? Because you see a lot of these young athletes now, a lot of young women are not having long careers because the social media thing is so bad and the exposure is so high, and they expect them to be perfect all the time. And I'm going, she's a young woman, just let her, all that, I'm just concerned about all of those things that impact, and I think they're greater now than they've ever been.
But maybe, if she's got good people around her and good advice, she'll do what, you and I probably would have done with that sort of money, make sure our parents and our siblings and all those nearest and dearest are okay, and maybe buy the odd treat. But then maybe, she'll set up a philanthropic trust, and maybe there'll be a channel out there to help other communities, maybe.
Yeah. And then it was interesting, so I'm into tennis, but I was looking at her through the tournament, I was looking at her, who was in her box. It was all men. It's quite interesting. So her parents went there, and I was saying to my wife, Kate, I said, they look nice guys. It was really interesting. They weren't pumped up, because you see some coaches get really animated and pumped up, and these guys look really chilled. And I said, you know what? It looks like they're really nice people and that they're enjoying the moment, and it's all about her, it's not about them. Anyway, I think it's just, I really, but it's going to be interesting to see, and hopefully people look after her, not just from a financial point of view, but looking after her as a person and nurturing this teenager who is now on the world stage and is a world name and so forth. And God, we are so far off track, off topic.
Really?
Oh, Wendy, I could talk to you all day. Okay, right, so I'm going to pretend to be professional. What else do we need to talk about, Wendy? So we can wrap this thing up and go home. What? Okay, seriously. Is there, because we did have a list here, what subjects have we missed out? What other things would you like to drop into this podcast?
Note pregnant pause there, because there's nothing I like less than talking about myself. So, really, I have enjoyed our conversation.
Have you?
I have. Yeah, I have.
Thank you.
I like that you are into equity and that you care a lot about what people think, and that you are imperfect, as we all are, but you embrace that. Every day's a learning, isn't it? It's just, there isn't a single day that goes by that I don't go, okay, right. Which is terrific. Otherwise, life would be boring.
Yep, it would be. And embracing imperfection is just, I don't really have an option. Look, I think it is really important message for younger generation too, is forget the perfection thing. It's just a bullshit, and if I ever write a book, and I've said this many times, it will be entitled Nobody's Got Their Shit Together, and that's okay. And because we have never, with all the hundreds of people we've worked with, we've never ever met one person that's had their shit together. And if you think they are, it's just a facade. It's just a very shiny facade, and we need to get over that, and embrace the imperfection, and I think celebrate the imperfection as well.
100%. It's one of the things I love most about CQ and my group. Being a business leader, where basically your butt's on the line for everything and everyone around the business. It can be incredibly lonely. And, you have those nights, I have those nights where I'm awake at 2 a.m. and just mulling things over and wrestling with scenarios. But, when I'm in that room with my group and, the kimonos are open, everyone is sharing everything, find that actually there are common threads, and I'm not the only one feeling like this. I'm not the only one that's experienced that. I'm not the only one who's going through this, and I'm definitely not on my own with this. The whole crew is there, and that for me has been a real change from feeling like I'm carrying the world on my shoulders to actually I've got this posse. And even though we might only meet 2 or 3 times a year to really do some storming, if I want to contact any one of them via WhatsApp, they're there for me in a heartbeat. And it's just made such a difference to that feeling of sometimes I feel like I'm in this on my own, but actually I'm not.
And that was the whole premise of setting up, all those years ago, is because success can be really tough, right? And we don't talk about that. We know that failure is tough, but success is tough too. You end up in spaces and go, okay, so now what do I do? Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Wendy, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Shout out to your mother. Thank you for listening to the end.
Hi, Mom.
Wendy, keep up the good work. Thank you for disrupting this market and bringing a whole different way of operating. And I would love to see more companies like this spring up and start recruiting people in a different, more human way, and bringing words like thrive and symphony into that. I love that word thrive. It's such a I don't know, it's just when I hear the word thrive, I love it.
I love it too. I've enjoyed our chat, and I hope the same as well.
Good luck, Wendy. Thank you. You've just been listening to an episode of Stuff That Matters Now, brought to you by Collective Intelligence. I hope you enjoyed listening to the fun stuff, the rugged stuff, and the complete stuff-ups that have helped this particular Collective Intelligence member evolve while making the world a better place. Do check out our Stuff That Matters Now podcast series on your favourite podcast provider, or visit our website www.collectiveintelligence.co.nz to get links to new episodes. Contact us if you want to learn more about how we can help you evolve yourself and others. Thanks for listening.